Okay, part 2 of chapter 10, global warming, which is a hoax. Global warming is a hoax. So we're talking about the differences between man-made global warming and natural global warming. So the man-made global warming is the stuff that liberals try to convince everybody that men are capable of causing changes in temperature and the weather patterns on Earth through pollution, burning of fossil fuels, yada, yada, yada. Okay. Before we get into the actual myth versus truth thing, and then later on we're going to get into Al Gore and his legion of lies with regard to this whole topic. I want to talk a little bit about the debate argument, or the lack of debate in this whole thing. Liberals, like I said, will take their ball and go home, stop arguing the point, say for everybody's sake, the discussion is over, we're right, you're wrong, too bad, go away. Well, we're not going away. In fact, every day that goes, this lie continues, more and more of their garbage is exposed. One thing they love to tell everybody is how many scientists are on their side. They like to throw out this number of 97% of all scientists agree with the liberals, agree that man is causing catastrophic potential, anyway, catastrophic future problems that we will not be able to return from. 11 years ago, Al Gore, for instance, one of the non-scientists, made a prediction that if we do not do something in 10 years, the point of no return will have passed, and we will be going into a time where the globe will warm and people will die and all sorts of Armageddon-like things will occur. Well, a year ago, that 10-year period was up, and as far as I could tell, nothing happened. Doom and gloom, predictors of catastrophic events, fear-mongering. These are the tactics used by the left in all things, not just global warming. They do it with regard to race relations, they do it in regard to multiculturalism, they do it in regard to all sorts of political things. Nothing more than this, but they do it all the time. So I'm going to give you a little rundown of some of the people who are actually not agreeing with the global warming crowd. And I don't just mean talk show hosts. I'm talking about scientists, prominent scientists. And of course, you're going to find me looking to my notes now, because from this point forward, there's going to be a lot of names, statistics, proof that there's no way I could remember. So you'll have to pardon me, because I can do the research, but I don't have photographic memory. Dr. Ivar Giever, I know I'm misspelling that name, a Nobel laureate, says that global warming, man-made global warming, is pseudoscience. You'll see that little word right here, pseudoscience. Fake science. A Nobel laureate, okay? Liberals love Nobel Prize winners. They even give things like that to presidents who don't deserve them. One of my favorites, Dr. Roy Spencer, an ex-NASA scientist and author who has written book after book after book, putting these liberals into their place and showing why their science is hogwash, is complete bunk. John Coleman, the founder, they like to say co-founder, but for all intents and purposes, he was the founder of the Weather Channel. And he has gone on to CNN, and he's gone on to Fox, he's gone on to lots of it. He even has a few videos of his own where he completely shoots the idea of man-made global warming down dead in its tracks, without question. And he started the Weather Channel. the people who run the Weather Channel now, complete, bought and paid for liberal morons, by the way. Dr. Fritz Varenholt. These are international scientists, not just Americans, you know. He's a socialist and the father of the modern German environmental movement. Of all people. He pointed out numerous issues with the IPCC's report, a report that was put out by the IPCC, which stands for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC. And their report is so full of holes, even a socialist environmentalist had to poke fun at it. James Lovelock, many liberals will know who that is, an author and former predictor of catastrophic global warming, who has admitted the predictions were all wrong. He's one of the head scratchers going, I would have swore that by now we would start seeing significant global warming. And I don't see it. That's what he says. He's basically, you know, an honest broker here. And there's a lot of people who have come from the left side and moved to the right side of this thinking, if there is a left or right. And let's put it more succinctly or more truthfully. They've come from the lie side and come to the truth side. And then, of course, there's Dr. Patrick Moore, co-founder of Greenpeace itself, who left Greenpeace in 1986 because he felt that they were becoming too politically left and too politically motivated and not doing what he founded the thing to be doing in the first place, saving whales or whatever. Dr. Patrick Moore, who had all the reasons to be bought and paid for by the left, to just go along, to get along like all the other sheeple on the left do, and he decided to break out and actually debunk global warming. And I have a couple quotes here that will blow your mind. Patrick Moore basically is questioning who was responsible for promoting unwarranted fear, and what are their motives? The fear of global warming. And here's what he said, and I quote, "A powerful convergence of interests, scientists seeking grant money, media seeking headlines, universities seeking huge grants from major institutions, foundations, environmentalist groups, politicians wanting to make it look like they are saving future generations from global warming. And all the people have converged on this issue. All these people have converged on this issue," unquote. He's also been quoted as saying this, quote, "The alarmism is driving us through scare tactics to adopt energy policies that are going to create a huge amount of energy poverty among the poor people. It's not good for people and it's not good for the environment. Besides, in a warmer world, we can produce more food," unquote. So, not only is it not, 97% of all scientists, there are thousands of scientists who have actually signed a petition saying that the global warming thing is something that is bunk and that they are not in agreement with, skewing that 97% all to heck. And not only that, some of the most prominent left-wing people are on the side of truth here against global warming. They can't even get everybody on board. The science is so bad. For the few left-wingers who actually think that science is something you don't mess with in order to prove a political point, good for them. Okay. So now what I want to talk about is what Dr. Roy Spencer says is a possible reason that we're dealing with what we're dealing with. As I said, he is an ex-NASA scientist. He's written many books disproving most of global warming. Now, he's not denying global warming or man-made global warming, and neither am I. I'm not saying that we are not doing something. It's just not substantial enough to be warranting all this money being spent. It's not substantial enough to be worrying about and fear-mongering about future generations. It's something that Earth can easily overcome. There are so many more mechanisms on Earth to balance out warming. And it's actually happening, which is why Mr. Head Scratch can't figure out why his predictions didn't happen. Something else to keep in mind, and that is that the liberals have a tendency to over exaggerate. That's not a word. Exaggerate to prove a point. So they'll overreach every time, and they look laughable when proven wrong. So what did Dr. Spencer tell us? He said that, first of all, the computer models that are used by the liberals are antiquated, outdated, and just completely full of guesswork. Additionally, they have a thing what's called science by consensus. Now, I know there's a lot of liberal scientists out there, and you ought to know better. There's a right way of doing science, and there's a wrong way of doing science. The right way is you have peer review, trial and error. You find out what's right and go with it. You don't decide what the result's going to be. You let the science do that. Okay? Science by consensus is the wrong way. It's not a poll. It's not an opinion. It's science that decides it, not opinion. If you have a goal that you're going to want to achieve, you will find the science. Trust me. You'll find it every single time. If you're paid to find an answer, you're going to find that answer so you can get paid. That ain't science, folks. That's the opposite of science, whatever that is. Unscientific is what it is. It's politics. It's what drives everything here. Most research into global warming assumes that it's man-made. They assume it's man-made. So they're not going to do much looking into natural causes. And so most science in the study of global warming doesn't even look at natural causes. Roy Spencer does. Even the IPCC says that their computerized climate models only produce the observed warming through human-caused pollution. That's the only way their model even looks at it, through pollution. They don't look for natural causes, and so they can't find any. Well, duh! Of course you're not going to find any if you're not looking for it. You know, only every 100 years do you find something like penicillin when you're looking at mold by accident. Usually not going to find anything by an accident. If you ain't looking for it, you ain't going to find it. Roy Spencer said that one of the things he's working on right now is as a reasoning for the current uptick of climate change, global warming, although it's now showing a sign that it might be going down again, and we'll talk about that, is what he called the PDO, the Pacific Decadal Oscillation. Okay, that's a big fancy term. What the hell does it mean? Basically what it is a 30, unlike El Nino, which is a trend every couple years of warming in the oceans. This is a 30-ish year trend of the northern Pacific waters occurrence, circulation in the water. A pattern that has reoccurred many times in the last 100 years. If you figure every 30 years, it would have occurred 3 times, and it has. It happened in the 20s, it happened in the 40s, and it happened last time in 1977, which has given rise to our current global warming. And it turns out to be very coincidental on another topic. Back in the 1970s, some of the scaremongers on the left were convinced, because of the patterns of weather that had been going on in the 60s and 70s, that we are headed for global cooling, and that we're causing global cooling as a species. And that's possibly because of the PDO. It was not in a warming trend. And if you look at the warming of the Earth over the last century or so, you will see it warmed in the 40s and 50s, it lowered itself in the 60s and 70s, and right around 1977 it started to go back up again. It goes like this. It doesn't just go straight, up, down, up, but a general rising after 1977. And all of a sudden, all those fearmongers about global freezing and global cooling and all this other stuff, they shut the hell up because the Earth's starting to warm up again. Now what do? Now we start complaining about global warming because we still need that money. We still need that power. We still need to convince the sheeple that something man-made is going. Still need to stop pollution. We still need to hug the trees. We still need to whatever. So now let's talk about global warming. And so for the last 2 or so decades, they were hammering away about that. And what do you know? The Earth warmed up a whole degree in the last century on average. How underwhelming. Well, that wasn't working. So global cooling doesn't work. Global warming doesn't work. Now we're just going to call it climate change. In other words, once again, the liberals want it both ways. Coming and going. No matter what you say to disprove them, they've got the equal opposite reasoning, circular logic, to prove their point. If it's not freezing, it's warming. It's not warming, it's freezing. Either way, man caused it. You know, that kind of argument can never be won, but it also can never be lost. And they'd rather just not lose an argument than actually try to win it, because they can't. Okay. Now, let's talk about all the myths and all the truths that we talked about. One myth, the 97% myth of all scientists. Now let's talk about a few others, some of the more popular ones. Myth. Burning of fossil fuels, coal, petroleum, natural gas, adds carbon dioxide to enhance greenhouse effects and is thought to have added 40 to 45% carbon dioxide to the atmosphere since the Industrial Revolution, which is now 150 years old. That's the myth. That's one of the big ones that they like to put on everybody. Why is it crapola? Well, it's crapola for a couple reasons. One is there's very little carbon dioxide in the atmosphere in the first place. Very, very little. Currently, there's about 39 parts out of every 100,000 molecules. 39 molecules out of every 100,000 molecules of air. So, very little. And in 5 years of the current way man is adding CO2 to the atmosphere, it would take 5 years just to raise 1 part to 40 molecules out of 100. So do the math down the road, assuming nothing changes. We're still nothing. We'll keep going with some more myths in part 3 of our video.